making sure that you're kind of spreading a blanket in terms of figuring out where you're going to be or what you want to do and searching for those opportunities is really crucial.
Welcome to episode 126 of The Route, presented by White Whale Marketing. The Route is a glorified sports business coffee chat that has a new guest every episode as they share their experiences and route in sports. As always, I'm Chris Nascimento, and let's get started. Before we begin, just a couple things to cover. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see here on the top hand corner, it says The Route. Underneath that, it says at The Route Sports. That is our username on all social media. All the good traditional one, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and I'm sure I'm missing something else, but you can find us all there. But more importantly, it's at The Route Sports on LinkedIn as well. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably interested in sports business combined. Maybe you're looking to start your network, grow your network, or just kind of maintain it. It's kind of a great way to kind of, do that through the LinkedIn pages. We have a lot of people interacting there. So check it out on at The Route Sports on social media. And if you haven't already, before we get into today's episode, take the time to subscribe, follow, rate 5 stars, all that good stuff that you can do on, podcasting platforms. We're on all the major audio platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, and I think 6 others. And we're on YouTube as well. For YouTube, you can find us at the White Whale Marketing YouTube channel, so White Whale MKTG. And we have the Route playlist just underneath it there, and you can find the last 60 episodes when we started video. So check it out there. There's clips as well. So yeah.
Damn it, I lost another bet. I always do this. Why can't I win at least one?
You need an edge in sports betting.
BetSamp allows you to compare the best available odds among sports books. To get an edge in sports betting, download the BetSamp app and use the code WHALE to get access to all the affiliates and pricing. The only way to get an edge in online sports betting is by having accounts with multiple sports books.
Yes.
BetSamp.
Yeah. Now with that done, we can now get into today's episode. I'd now like to welcome someone who I actually was fortunate enough to meet when we were both students. So I had a professor of mine who recommended we connected because we had a similar interest in sports business, sports marketing. So funny enough, I've known them for a long time. We've been meaning to get them on the podcast for quite some time now. I think all the way back to when the podcast first started. Who has experience with the Ottawa Red Blacks, and now at Wasserman as the associate manager of experience. Jon Halpenny, welcome to The Route. How's it going?
Hello. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the warm introduction. Things are going well, and yourself?
Yeah, no, things are going good. We were having some internet issues before here, but hopefully everything maintains. We can get into your route here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So as the podcast goes, The Route within its name, let's go through yours. Where did it start? What did you go to school for? How did you get into sports? And how did you get into the role you're in now?
Yeah, sounds good. So I'll take you way back. So my route actually started a little bit different than the typical pathway. So I started in engineering at the University of Ottawa. I started in that direction, just not really knowing what I fully wanted to do. Was pursuing engineering and had quickly realized that really wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I took it upon myself to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be, and figure out what I really liked. And I found that I loved sports. I had an interest in business. So taking the two and marrying those two passions together just seemed to be the perfect storm. So my route started there in terms of figuring out how I could pursue a career, what education I needed, or what would get me to ultimately work in that field. And I was fortunate to kind of test drive a bunch of different courses at the University of Ottawa, and was also able to get connected at the University of Ottawa Sports Business Club by one of my mentors now, Greg Emile. He actually helped me get involved in the club, and I was able to join the executive committee there to learn a bit more about the industry, network it myself, and really decide if this was the pathway I wanted to take. this was really kind of the first stepping stone in my career. And I think I'm just so grateful to have had that exposure early on to figure out what I wanted to do. So from there, it kind of cascaded into what degree or what program should I try and pursue? What can I do to ultimately get to the industry? And I ultimately found that the best course of action was to transfer to the University of Waterloo and transfer into their recreation and sport business program, because that would allow me to transfer all my credits and continue to pursue a field that I was interested in. So ultimately, my pathway led to Waterloo. I spent a great 4 years there doing the recreation and sport business program in the co-op stream. This allowed me to take on a few different internships throughout my 4 years there. I ended up interning with Golf Canada, Ontario Volleyball Association, and with Rogers Communications. I actually wasn't able to continue adding what would typically be your fourth co-op just due to the global pandemic. But ultimately, yeah, I was fortunate to have these internships that I fought for and connected with many people to kind of seek out these opportunities and test drive again all the different facets of the industry. I wanted to get exposure in media, communications, graphic design, partnerships, events, really just get a whole smorgasbord of what the industry had to offer so that I could find a way to nestle myself in where I wanted to be, but also to be a Swiss Army knife when it came to trying to enter the market. I learned very early on that being a Swiss Army knife can be super helpful, versatile, and being a team player can help really set you apart and really give you that first step in the door. So that's ultimately what my kind of educational and co-op experiences were to kind of set me up hopefully for success. And what really the key, I guess, looking back now, my opportunities were a little slim given the global pandemic, and that was about the same time that I was graduating. So I spent numerous months searching the job boards, talking to different people and the different connections I had, just to see kind of what the market was looking like. It was a little unsteady, but again, fortunately, I had a great mentor in Greg at Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, and spoke to him. Saw that they were ramping things back up with the CFL returning, the OHL returning, and was able to kind of tee up the opportunity at Ottawa Sports and Entertainment on their digital marketing and content team. So at that role, I was able to really sink my teeth into creating content, working on social media. And again, I think this was a really unique experience for me to see the ins and the outs of marketing, communications, and content, to have a better understanding of where I wanted to be within the field of sports in this industry. And then ultimately, that really ended up kind of being, again, another stepping stone to my current role here at Wasserman as the associate manager of experience. I work with a great team here, and what we get to do is create memorable experiences and events for our different clients, our different athletes, our different properties, all of those different groups and stakeholders. We get to create memorable experiences, and it's such an incredible opportunity that was kind of thrust upon me kind of towards the kind of early stages of last year. And that's kind of where it takes me to present day.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great job of kind of just sharing your route. And yeah, I'm just taking notes down here. There's already so many things I kind of want to get into. And what I always like doing is going all the way back to the very beginning. And funny enough, how you and I got connected was, I think, just after you left Ottawa, right? I think we just finished having the same professor. I think you had in the semester before and had in the semester after. So I think that was funny enough where, we were meeting each other as students initially. And I remember you were probably the first person I actually connected with within sports, right? Because I shared it with the professor saying, hey, I'd be interested in sports marketing. I just switched out of accounting. He's like, hey, talk to Jon because he kind of did the leap as well. So I don't remember, and I'm sure I have a booklet somewhere here that has all the notes because I was asking, hey, how do you network? How did you make the switch? All the different things like that. And funny enough, you're kind of touching on some of it. So without going too far back, your time at UAuto, right? You're saying you're trying to test things out through the courses, the sports
Yep.
business club, and also you had Greg as a great person to lean on. What types of things, do you mind maybe getting into more detail? Like what types of things were you specifically doing in regards to the courses? Was it like a specific sports course, a marketing course? Like how did that look?
So initially, my first year was just engineering courses, but once I knew that I wanted to start test driving those different courses, I took a variety of business courses. I took a variety of social sciences and humanities, even geography courses. Again, just to figure out what I wanted to do, because ultimately that was kind of crucial into figuring out my pathway. So I really just immersed myself in all of the different courses, whether that be accounting, that be marketing, even IT for business, all the different facets. I think just to get a kind of a baseline understanding of what the theory and common practice is for the field of business, because it's such an easy way to apply a lot of this, the common business principles to the field that we work in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think funny enough, what you're saying there, right, where you're testing all sorts of courses, right? Obviously, you start in engineering, but then you're kind of going into geography and other departments like that. And I still remember when I was in university, I saw I think it was Casey Neistat video back in the day, and he had a quote like, "If you don't know what you want to do, just do something, figure it out, try different things, and once you start doing something you hate, it's like you're gonna figure out really quick what you enjoy." So I don't know if you had
Absolutely.
that same type of experience in one of those courses or maybe in one of those endeavors that you were trying. Was there anything specific that you did and like, oh, nope, this isn't for me. This is where I'd rather be.
Without a doubt, yeah. I'm also a big fan of Casey Neistat, incredible creator, inspirational as well. And but no, without a doubt, that was my approach as well. I've always been told it's easier to find what you don't like than what you do like sometimes. So that was what I tried to do, was figure out, going line by line, what do I not want to do, or what am I not as interested in? What can I strike off my list? And really narrow down to the different facets of what I want to do. And from there, basically, I took the different courses and realized, hey, I really like marketing. I really like events. I want to get that exposure. I want to be focused on that. I want to understand partnerships, the game day operations, all sorts of those areas of the sports industry was what I really wanted to hone in on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And I guess building on that as well, right? I didn't find out about sports business clubs, I think, until my last semester or something like that. And it kind of was like a last second push because I only figured out I didn't want to be in accounting halfway through. So what was it like? A lot of the people that are listening to this are typically, students, younger professionals, and maybe people that would even go back to school and switch degrees. So what was your experience like, and how would you recommend someone get involved with a sports business club through the school if they're at one?
Absolutely. So I very similarly was not familiar with the different associations and clubs that do exist within kind of undergraduate and graduate school. I think really what it's on you to really look for those opportunities. They're out there on social media. It's so readily available. So just go out and search your club listings at your schools. And check out the websites that they have or the social media platforms that they have. Almost every school has one nowadays, even those schools that aren't specifically focused with a program in sports business or sports management. It's just such a big field because it's a very popular field as well that schools are looking to have those like-minded individuals exist for networking opportunities, events, and just to help each other within pursuing the dream of working in sports. So certainly just kind of take that leap of faith and look for those opportunities within your schools because they certainly exist across all the different institutions.
Yeah, no, that's a ton of sense. And I think it's great advice as well, right? Where, being that student, it kind of allows you to, try things out and have that cap of, hey, I'm a student, I'm just learning, right? And people are always going to give you that opportunity. And I even know when I took a solely business course through marketing, nothing relating to sports, but every project I did, I try to apply it to sports and somehow, right? If we're working with, what was it, a not-for-profit, and I think that was the class you took as well with David Large. I tried to spin it where we worked with a sports not-for-profit and kind of go from that. So obviously a ton of opportunities. Before we kind of, let's say, graduate from this conversation of university and your schooling, do you mind maybe sharing a bit more about how you came to find your mentor, Greg, specifically? 'Cause I know when I first transitioned from accounting to marketing, kind of wanting to get into the sports industry, I had no idea, right? That was probably one of the first questions I was asking people. I'm sure that was one of the questions I asked you when I found out you switched to sports, right? So do I maybe diving into that and sharing a bit more about it?
Absolutely. So I think it's so valuable to have your network, and I know it's cheesy to say, but like your network is your net worth. And I hammer it home to anyone I talk to, whether it be coffee chats or conversations like this, just because I think there's so much value to it. Because and the way I kind of really got started in establishing my network and mentors and that kind of approach is I learned that people are willing to talk about what they do and what they want to do. So really, it's just about putting yourself out there, making an introduction, and just saying, hey, can I take you to have a quick coffee for 15, 20 minutes? Or now it's so simple with the internet, right? You can just hop on a Zoom call for 20 minutes and just rattle off a bunch of questions or hear about what their pathway is, and just start really those surface level like relationships with people. And from there, you can cultivate those relationships further into saying, hey, I'd love to have you as a mentor. You've really helped me develop and grow into a better individual. And you're someone who I aspire to have kind of a career or an approach to the industry with as well. And so I kind of had that approach in terms of talking to different people at the different events that I had attended in undergraduate, and really kind of tried to carry that through, whether that be with Greg or a few of other mentors that I keep in touch with, trying to, again, just keep those relationships there. And the other thing I would say is don't overstress trying to establish these relationships and keep them up so consistently. It can the individuals that you connect with are always going to be the same type of people. They're always willing to talk and always willing to catch up. So don't feel as if you need to be updating someone every couple months. There are mentors that I have talked to on a more frequent basis, but then there's also mentors that I talk to once a year, and I'll send just kind of a quick update, and it's just them just enjoying the fact that we do keep that kind of informal relationship. And if they want to pipe in and share some insights or some updates on their end, then that's great as well. But there's no pressure, and I think that's what's unique about building and forming those professional relationships.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you just shared there, because I think that was some of the pressure I felt when I first started networking, where I was like, hey, like I need to get a mentor, and I felt like it was such a ceremonial type of experience. I was like, hey, like will you be my mentor? Right? It's kind of this big question, right? But then, as you said, it's kind of more a little relaxed, let's say, where you don't need to be chatting every single day, right? Like I have, maybe one specific mentor that I kind of text whenever I have kind of a question like that, some a little less frequently, and then so on and so forth, right? Like you're saying, where some you just check in once a year. So I think that's kind of a great thing to share, because oftentimes when you hear that mentor, you're like, oh, like we got to be talking every single day. They need to know about every single experience. So I think that's kind of a great way to kind of dive into that. And one of the points you're just making there as well was just about how important, networking was. The cheesy line, your network is your net worth. I feel that completely. I shared this in episode 120, where I'm kind of giving an update where I am with, my own route. And I really found my career kind of started, going upwards when I started saying, hey, like, can you help me in this area? Or, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? And kind of really leveraging that network. And that's when things really started to kind of be different. So I think that's super important in itself. And just as you were saying there too, right, about, hey, like you'd be surprised how willing people are open to talk. And I absolutely agree with that, where this podcast, oftentimes people ask me, like, hey, how'd you get this person? How'd you get that person? I just shot them an invite on LinkedIn and say, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And it's just as simple as that, right? Where it's just asking the question. I think, as my dad would say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So moving on to that, talking about squeaky wheels, you're talking about how you're, fighting for internships and really trying to gain that experience. Do you mind maybe diving into, let's say, Golf Canada and the other internships you had there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate really to have some awesome opportunities in internships that really built those like the foundations of what of my knowledge, my experience, and who I am as a professional. And really to achieve those internships, I just honestly was connecting with people, just having different coffee chats, scouring all of the different job boards and trying to figure out like who works here, who does this, what can I learn about this company or organization, what are the best routes even to just approach a different organization to get a job. Like, are we looking at something for profit? Are we looking for not for profit? What types of organizations are out there? Because I think the pressure exists right now, or the allure of the sports industry is that you really just want to work in for a professional team, which is fantastic. I think it's a key experience within the industry, and I'm still brand new to the industry, but I think don't forget that there are so many other organizations or companies that play a massive role within the sports industry. And I think making sure that you're kind of spreading a blanket in terms of figuring out where you're going to be or what you want to do and searching for those opportunities is really crucial. So a lot of my opportunities were actually just by firing off notes for coffee chats, for internship opportunities, to figure out what existed. And then from there, I would cultivate kind of next steps of, hey, let me put you in contact with this person. And then I got a message back of, hey, yes, this would be great. We'd love to chat with you a bit further on opportunities. And from there, it kind of just stemmed out.
And is there anything, like, let's say in particular, that you found out worked better than others? 'Cause I'm sure maybe someone listening is kind of writing it down. They're like, hey, what did John do? Because I want to kind of copy his route. Was there maybe like LinkedIn or saying, hey, coffee, 15 minutes, Zoom, 10 minutes? Was there something specific that worked out better than the others?
Full transparency, I would say, yeah, coffee chats and just the network. I think all my internships were kind of tied from having a connection to someone who I could say, hey, like, I'm interested in learning about your organization. I've applied for this job. Whether or not they were able to support that application or direct me to someone else to kind of further that the information process wasn't always guaranteed. But I think it was just key in putting myself out there and making my name a little bit more known. So at least when hopefully that that application kind of hits the stack, hey, maybe there was a chance that either you were pushed forward or your name resonates with someone when it's recalled. I think if you've got the drive and you've got all the other components of your application, I think really there's nothing stopping you from achieving or securing a good internship or opportunity. But really that network is going to be something that's so key in securing it, because everyone knows everyone within this industry. So don't be afraid to chat with people and learn.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of a perfect example of it too, right? Where, if your name just pops out, and then if you're kind of on par with another applicant, they're going to go with you because there's that comfortability aspect. And, funny enough, I have a funny story that I don't think I've ever shared with someone yet. But I think in December, I was, doing something for one of my clients. I reached out to a financial service company, they were like, hey, yeah, we're interested. We're going to come to this event. And I was like, oh, fantastic. Them and the manager come to the event. And then they're like, hey, yeah, we sold you a mortgage last week, right? And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, but your last name, like, I don't know anyone else with that last name. It has to be you. So the only reason that they kind of answers that quickly and are like, hey, we'll be there tomorrow, is because they're like, oh, this is our client, so we have to go. So obviously it's a little different. It's kind of just a funnier story, but it just shows when they recognize that name or anything like that, rather than just saying, hey, do I need to vet this person? Like, oh, no, I know this person. This is my buddy Chris, or hey, this is my buddy John, or we spoke last week. Absolutely, let's move them on throughout the process. So I thought that was kind of a funny story. That's a little off topic, but just kind of shows the value of, let's say, branding yourself or branding your name or just having a name that kind of stands out.
Absolutely. Yeah, you never know what advantage that can provide you in terms of saying, hey, like, let's just give this guy a chance. Like,
Exactly. And
what's it worth, right? It's just an opportunity. We've got to select a few candidates to do those initial interviews or call outs anyways. So let's see what he has to say. And if we can fast track processes, then why not?
Exactly. And like sometimes all you need is a chance, right? Where, now I told that company, I'm like, I'll absolutely do my mortgage with you. Just let's get this deal done. Right. So
absolutely.
That's how it works out. And I guess kind of moving forward with your career as well, right? Sorry. You're talking about the different internships you had, how you're kind of, figuring out where you kind of fit into the world of sports. And one of the other phrases you were using was test driving, right? You use that a lot when you're kind of explaining your route.
Definitely.
And you mentioned, hey, I was doing this, I was doing that. What types of things were you learning? You're like, hey, this is where I think I fit best. Hey, this is how I would do better. Like what types of things were you learning throughout that process of, let's say, test driving?
For sure. And I think kind of just reflecting on that, it's a bit of a two-sided thing. So I think in terms of test driving, it really gives you that opportunity to, again, try everything that's on the table. But I think one, it gives you an idea of what exists out there and what you do like. And then in the other hand, what it does is it tells you what you may not be as much of a fan of or what your weaknesses might be. And in that point, what you can do is then target those weaknesses and figure out, hey, like I need to spend a little bit more time doing accounting because you know what? We're going to work with budgets eventually. And hey, this is something that I'm maybe less familiar with. And that's something you want to kind of narrow in. Versus like looking at test driving kind of the marketing side or being creative. And for myself, I knew I loved being creative, doing kind of photography and design on the side. So that was something that I kind of immediately stuck with me. And it was like, okay, I know this is what kind of this might be my kind of bread and butter, but I know that there's other like gross vegetables on the plate that I need to make sure that I get because you want to be well balanced. But I think really was a key thing in figuring out in terms of the test drive process.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And just what you're talking about there, that well-balanced meal, let's say, and how you have all the, learning all these different skill sets, you're kind of referencing your, photography and creative. And I remember that's something that during the pandemic, you're, I think, doing jersey swaps or you did something for Waterloo where you kind of made their own jerseys. I remember seeing that, COVID at the beginning, you were locked in. So I started Googling myself these different YouTube videos on how to do it. I'm like, oh, this is incredibly hard. So I was just so impressed by your skill set of that, just kind of showing you're filling up your toolbox. And I'm sure that's been an added benefit in what you're doing now. And then I guess before we get to your position now at Wasserman, do I maybe getting into your time at OSEG, Ottawa Sports Entertainment Group with the 67s and Red Blacks? How did that position came to be? Was it something where it was just organic, or was it something where the job came to you and then maybe we can kind of move on from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a fantastic time with OSEG, and basically I had been following along. It's a hometown team. I'd always wanted to work for a hometown team, so it was a great opportunity that came to me. So searching kind of the job boards, I threw an application in, but then also still having a mentor in Greg, he was able to say, hey, like I can speak and see kind of who the hiring manager is and try and see if there's any way I can throw some support if that kind of comes up throughout the process. So he was a big proponent and big supporter for me. So I'm always grateful for him for helping me kind of establish myself and establish my kind of a presence for my first job. But I was fortunate to be working on social media and content with an awesome team. They truly are putting out top tier content over there. I don't think they get as much acknowledgement as they should be because of the leagues that they do operate in, which are typically just not as large as your big NHL, your NFL, your MLB, right? But it's just incredible to see the work that was being done there with the content and still being done there. So I was fortunate to be able to jump in there And admittedly, I had not as much experience in terms of the data analysis side of social media, which was actually a very large component of that role and that team, because really what they want to do is optimize the content and find that balance of really enjoyable content, but that's still pushing solid metrics, because those are really important in terms of the world of social media and content. It in turn, there's also some minor things in terms of, hey, there's content that just goes out because it's just performing really well, or it's just good content because it's good for the brand. But I learned so much about building a brand, analyzing social media, creating content, and being intentional with the content. And I'm truly grateful for that, because it gives me such a different perspective now, on the industry, on content, on my own work. And it created this, actually there's this unique community of designers, social media managers, and I was kind of immersed in thrown into that group. So I was able to really learn a lot from other people, and it was truly an awesome experience being able to be part of that team and create content that fans see on a daily basis and have to and want to connect with throughout a season, throughout the off season, and across the different brands that they have under their umbrella.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. And I was fortunate enough to run into you at a game once, and you're kind of telling me about the role, and it seemed like you really enjoyed it. And funny enough, what you're just saying here about that unique community of designers that you're able to, let's say, enter from that role, I think obviously I have you on Twitter. I see, you see what the people you follow like, and I see you liking these different design ones, where now I'm starting to like them, because I think, they're just so interesting to see the before and the after one. I think that's kind of a trend right now on Twitter. And it's just phenomenal, like some of the work that's getting put out. So I absolutely agree. If you're doing design or you want to get into it, check out Twitter, because really cool work out there. And I guess then moving forward from your time at OSEG, how did this role with Wasserman come to be, right? I know we initially spoke about, like, hey, let's get on the pod, and like, hey, like, I got something new coming up, so I'd love to hear about it, and maybe you can kind of share how that position came to be.
Absolutely. So the opportunity kind of came around. I was in the interview process, and was really just afforded an opportunity to join the experience team here at Wasserman. And it was something that I had debated a while, because I love working on content, social media, that side of things, because I've spent so much time myself building my own brand, building other social media platforms, and just loving creating content. And that was something that I didn't know if I wanted to steer away from, but then also the opportunity to kind of get back to the original roots of my role at in some of my internships, which was more partnerships and events focused. So really for me, it was about taking a leap of faith and thinking about what did I want to do, and did I want to try something different. And this opportunity for me, looking back now, was an awesome move, because I now see so much value in creating memorable experiences for guests, clients, you name it, because really what I get to do is help a brand or our clients ideate and execute on these large scale programs that guests get to go through, and you see smiles on their faces. You see people just immersing themselves in these events, which then gives me kind of that same feeling of, hey, people saw my content and have that same kind of enjoyment or passion towards seeing and getting involved with it. So I kind of was able to get the best of the both worlds kind of scenario out of this, where I get to be part of an events team and be boots on the ground, but then still getting that satisfaction of creating something for others within the industry, and seeing smiling faces after an event.
Yeah, no, that sounds phenomenal. And to be honest, it's as if you know what my game plan is with this episode, because you kind of segued right perfectly into the next question, where, obviously went through your whole route. And I think the way I like to end every episode is by asking these two questions. And, you're just touching on memorable experiences and how, impactful it is to kind of see what you're able to do through sports for, let's say, fans or even potential customers. So with that, I always like to say I'm going to live until 103, rocking chair. And the reason I ask this question is, what's one story that's kind of stood out in your career so far that you're going to remember at 103 on that rocking chair? Is there something that stands out to you as of yet?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I would say it's kind of it's almost more of a personal. It's not really an event or something happening, but I was given this piece of advice by one of my my former roommates, one of my friends now, who formerly worked in the sports industry, works a little in a different industry now, but his advice was to just take a moment and enjoy everything. So I think in terms of memorable, it kind of relates back because what I did was I took in my first job with OSEG, I took my coffee up to the empty stands before one of the Red Blacks games, and I just sat there and appreciated everything that I kind of had. And that was kind of really one of those memorable moments for me because I realized I worked so hard to be there. And I remember it was my first game that I had worked at home. And it was something that I'll cherish for forever because I just remembered I'd gotten a job. I achieved what I wanted to do. I had my degree and just felt like I was there. I met some of my goals that I had. And that was certainly something that maybe isn't necessarily a memorable event or moment, execution that I had, but it was something that allows me to reflect back on my career so far. And I think I've really tried to do that across the different events and programs or jobs that I've had, and I think I'll continue to do that. I remember doing that at one of the programs we were working on at the Smash Fest charity ping pong tournament. I took a moment and just admired the event that we had put on, all of the hours that we had put in the months before, the day before, and then again, just really just cherishing that moment of success and seeing everyone enjoying themselves. I think was certainly just a nice practice that I'll continue to do and would be my memorable thing that I would take to the grave.
Yeah, no, that's unreal. And to be honest, that's something just I think even today when we kind of hopped on this podcast today, we're just chatting about, hey, when were the last few times we were able to connect? And that perspective that you're just speaking of, I just remembered of, hey, it felt like such a long time ago, but in reality, it was probably 4 years ago, something like that. And I remember we were just chatting. We're both, I think, recent graduates. I was like, hey, like I want to do an esports tournament. Can you help me out? And then that feels such a long time ago, but in reality, it's not that long. Kind of just seeing all the things you've been able to do, right? Where
Absolutely.
it's like you sitting in the stands or these different events you're working on. And I think that's phenomenal. And yeah, I think that's super important for anyone in sports or even any career, right? In life, just kind of, sitting back sometimes and looking at what you've been able to accomplish is always healthy. So that kind of then segues into the next question fairly well. Maybe you're going to take over the hosting of this podcast. But I was going to ask about advice. And I think what you just gave there was phenomenal advice as well. But is there maybe anything else? Let's say it's 16-year-old Jon, right? We're going back in time now. Instead of going to the future, going back in time, 16-year-old Jon, let's say a 16-year-old student now listening, and they're going to go to university or they're in university about to switch programs like both you and I did. What's one piece of advice you're like, hey, this is something that could be of value to you now that you're looking to get into sports?
Wow, that's a great question. And you might honestly have me stumped here because I think it might honestly be, and it's a little generic and it might not, it doesn't necessarily just kind of hone in and specific. It's not necessarily specific to sports, but I would say just don't be afraid to put yourself out there or to try something new. Because I think for me, that's kind of what I would be telling myself. Because if I didn't put myself out there and be honest with myself that I didn't enjoy engineering, I wouldn't have figured out that I wanted to marry sports and business. If I didn't put myself out there and connect with different individuals to grow my network, I wouldn't have had opportunities in my internships. And if I didn't take a leap of faith to go home and start a career in Ottawa and try that and try different to learn different areas of the industry to get that job, or to during that job, I wouldn't have enjoyed what I was doing, and I wouldn't have developed into the person I am, and that really wouldn't have led to the opportunity that I work in now. So I think really as generic and standard as that saying is, but just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and just follow your heart.
Yeah, no, that's kind of something I've noticed with all the guests on the podcast. When I ask a question about advice to, let's say, a younger person or a younger version of themselves, it always ends up being the most basic advice that's kind of like the most beneficial, right? Whether it's, kind of what you're saying there, just do it, right? Just try new things, make yourself uncomfortable. Those little pieces, those little phrases, and let's say the generic ones, it always ends up being the ones that are like, hey, like maybe I do need to remember that, right? Because whether it's you kind of just pushing to kind of marry two things together, or trying new roles, or trying new jobs as a whole and moving somewhere else, that's kind of a big step to take. So I think that's super important, kind of a great way to end the episode. But yeah, John, it's been phenomenal. I'm glad I finally got you on the podcast. That's something I was looking forward to. And yeah, unless there's anything else you'd like to share, thank you for coming on.
No, likewise. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm glad we could finally sit down. And it's been fantastic to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, that's episode 126 of The Route with Jon Halpenny. Actually, if you want as well, why don't you shout out your creative account? Because I think that's something that could be of interest.
For sure. I'm on Instagram at JH Sports Photos and JH Creatives. I post photos from kind of my sports photography and some of my design work. So you can find me there on Instagram.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. It definitely, there's been stuff where I have to go YouTube afterwards to see if I can figure it out, but usually that doesn't end up happening. But no, thank you for coming on. That's it for episode 126. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and all the best. Thank you.